What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Behind the Grind. I was finally able to get my hands on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle as the game recently came out on PS5. Now, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was developed by Studio Machine Games and published by Bethesda, and with the recent acquisition by Xbox, the game was initially released as an Xbox and PC exclusive. Now, I do have an Xbox Series S, but my PlayStation 5 is a lot stronger than that thing, so April came around and I decided to check out the game. With that being said, I remember when this game was revealed and I wasn't completely sold on the idea of a first-person Indiana Jones game. Now don't get me wrong here, I absolutely love the Indiana Jones trilogy. Everyone in my family does actually, and I have vivid memories of watching the movies and playing the original LEGO Indiana Jones game on the PS2 with my younger brother. However, for some reason, the way this game was quietly revealed and the lack of promotional material kinda made me expect a late year flop. I'm just glad to say I was wrong, because after playing this game, I am amazed at everything the Great Circle has to offer. This game is without a doubt one of my most favorite gaming experiences I've ever had in my life, so I can't wait to finally talk about it. Let's put on the fedora, grab the whip, and get started. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank our channel members for supporting the Behind the Grind YouTube channel. Your help means a lot, and if you're interested in being a channel member, go ahead and check out the information in the description down below. Thank you. So as we kick this off, major spoiler alert, as Indiana Jones is all about the story, and there's just no way I wasn't going to talk about this masterpiece of an adventure. With that, I'd probably play and beat the game before you watch this unless you don't mind spoilers. You have been warned. Alright, so Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a first-person adventure game set in the Indiana Jones franchise, taking place between the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade in the year 1937. Combat, puzzles, and world exploration are the key gameplay mechanics here, and given the franchise, all fit extremely well. Normally, puzzles feel out of place in minigames, but because it's Indiana Jones, it makes complete sense. This game expertly captures the goofiness of classic Indiana Jones fistfights with loud punching sound effects and the hilarious beating of enemies with unconventional weapons. Finally, because Indiana Jones as a character is an explorer, you feel right at home looking in every nook and corner when exploring a cave or a Nazi encampment. Everything here just makes complete sense and is extremely immersive, as you actually feel like you're Indiana Jones himself thanks to the first-person perspective. It also helps that Harrison Ford's likeness was used for the game. I mean, how could you not? Troy Baker came in to deliver the voice acting for our protagonist, and hats off to Troy and the developers, man. Unfortunately, Harrison Ford won't be around forever, yet his likeness can still be preserved in games like these moving forward. Using Harrison Ford now in his elderly age just doesn't feel like a classic Indiana Jones adventure since he's so old. So, moving forward, video games and animation will have to carry this franchise on. Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones and vice versa, so hopefully, he's never recast. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle begins in South America during the year 1936 in a shot-for-shot recreation of the iconic opening scene to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Just from this intro alone, I knew that indie fans were in for a treat, as Machine Games obviously had a lot of care and respect for the franchise. Everything from the bats flying out of the stone face, to the dude trying to pull a fast one on Indy, and even the temple scene is all here on display. Just like in the movie, Indiana Jones and Satipo make their way to the Temple of the Golden Idol, and I think this is where the first-person perspective really clicked for me. While exploring this temple, we actually see it through Indy's eyes this time around. Seeing everything from his perspective really makes the temple exploration feel authentic, as you're actually going through the temple yourself and you genuinely feel like you're there. And so, after carefully making our way through the pressure plates, the Golden Idol is in Indy's hands, and you guys know what's next.
Give me the whip!
Adios, señor.
Adios, Speedo.
So, after running away from the boulder, it turns out that this was all a dream sequence for Indy as he wakes up in his office at Marshall College. On a dark and stormy night, it seems like our boy was having a really good time alongside an old friend, Marcus Brody. Suddenly, Indy hears some noises and gets up to investigate. Now, this whole intro sequence is masterful at setting up the atmosphere that should be warm and welcoming, as expected by an American university in the 1930s. However, it's instead a dreary and mysterious ambience. I mean, isn't it always said that schools at nighttime are extremely unsettling? Mixed in with the storm outside, this introduction definitely sets up a good mystery. Suddenly, we come face to face with this abnormally large man, and I mean, given the size of this giant, we really didn't stand a chance. We get our first taste of combat, if you can even call it that, since after a few moments, Indy gets knocked out. Waking up in the morning, Indy recounts what happened, and after a short puzzle, Marcus and Indy take notice of an artifact that was stolen out of a display case in the school museum. The artifact, a small cat-like mummy, is missing, and luckily, the thief left behind a clue that will take us to the next stop in our adventure, the Vatican City. So in classic Indiana Jones fashion, journey calls, and we gotta go on a mission across the world, and we even get a sweet little callback to Marion through this little letter that she leaves on one of his journals. Traveling to the Vatican City, now's a really good time to bring up the sheer scale of this game. Indiana Jones is known for going everywhere on cool adventures and expeditions, and in the Great Circle, we get a good variety of set pieces. Just to name a few apart from the Vatican, we also find ourselves in Shanghai during the Japanese invasion of China, the snowy mountaintops of the Himalayas, the ziggurat of Ur in Iraq, where US soldiers are actually photographed in real life, which I think is pretty metal, and a Nazi excavation at the site of the Great Pyramids in Giza. There's no shortage of cool stuff to see in the Great Circle, and if you're a fan of world history, you'll take a liking to all these great set pieces. So eventually we infiltrate the Vatican City at night, and this is the point in the game where I was in awe just looking at these graphics. Seeing the city illuminated at night under a deep blue, star-infested night sky was literally breathtaking, and you know what? This game is extremely underrated in terms of graphics and very much needs to be talked about more. This is the first time in the game where the gameplay really opens up, and this secret infiltration of the fascist-controlled Vatican really focuses on stealth as Indy quietly creeps around and puts bad guys to sleep. As we're introduced to combat, the Great Circle has a main focus on melee combat, and all the improvised weapons found everywhere are fun to whack enemies with, and you can even make use of firearms from time to time. With the firearms in mind though, they are extremely loud and will alert all enemies in the area to your presence. And the icing on the cake is they'll pull out their guns too. Combat in this game is very comedic, just like in the movies, and at times, I would roleplay as Indy and really get into the character. Like when this dude charges me with a sword, and I just shoot him.
Why'd you have to do that?
Or when I whack this guy in the face with a frying pan. But anyway, after punching a lot of dudes and secretly getting by, Indiana links up with an old friend named Antonio, a priest who informs us that the fascist Italian blackshirts have made a deal with another priest named Padre Ventura, allowing the fascists to seek an artifact containing something they deem of importance. Father Antonio eventually provides us with a sleek-looking priest uniform, and off we go into the Vatican City, and this is where the game really opens up for the first time. Stepping out into the Vatican City here basically introduces the player to the sort of structure in this game. The Vatican City serves as one of 3 main locations, complete with side quests, collectibles, and even unique NPCs. From this point on, the focus is the main quest, but it's so easy to get lost in the world and experience everything this game has to offer. Side quests here are just as interesting as the main quest at times. I'm not gonna lie man, the Vatican City serves as the perfect introduction to the rest of the game, and the side quests are fun to play and pretty rewarding, like this one that has Indy taking photos of cats around the city as he tries to find a specific one. Side quests aren't everything though, and starting from now, you can discover these adventure books that have skills tied to them, meaning that this will be where the bulk of the progression is found. So sprawled across the Vatican City and the other main set pieces are the adventure books, and once you pick them up you can access the skill the book rewards by unlocking them with an in-game currency called adventure points. Now adventure points aren't like the money you find around the world, but are instead earned by doing tasks such as completing side quests, finding these medicine bottles, engaging in amusing photography, and even burning Nazi or fascist propaganda posters, which I thought was a neat touch. Other collectibles include your standard journal entries, letters, maps, and the locations of other collectibles, and even these strange artifacts that are tied to a secret ending. But we'll get into that further down the line. Unlocking a few of these adventure books mostly help Indiana Jones in combat, traversal, and inventory management, as some of them allow for more damage with firearms, a quick knockout through the use of the whip, improved health bars, and the ability to carry more items in general. Now, when I first started playing, I thought there would only be a small amount of these adventure books, as there couldn't possibly be much to unlock when it comes to Indy's abilities, but you'd be surprised to find out there's like 50 of them to find across the whole game. All in all, these make for great progression, as you'll notice the game progressively change the more skills you acquire. Moving on, another pretty cool feature discovered through the exploration is the disguise mechanic. At certain times in the story, Indiana Jones will be given a disguise, or will find one hidden in the world, like the priest's outfit in the Vatican City, or the iconic dig site disguise once we get to Egypt. Those hidden, however, allow you to dress as one of the military personnel specific to that area. Fascist Italians for the Vatican and Sukhothai, and a Nazi German soldier from the Wehrmacht when in Giza. Now, these disguises throw off enemies and make stealth a lot easier. For example, when dressed as a soldier, you can pretty much blend in and walk around restricted military zones, with the only downside being that the officers will see through your disguise almost immediately. Finally, acquiring hidden disguises allows access to the underground boxing rings, where you can fight for money and prizes, which is a neat little addition, somehow feeling right at home given that Indiana Jones is always beating up bad guys. After a little while of collecting items and progressing the main story, we meet our female companion for the Great Circle, Gina Lombardi, an Italian journalist who is searching for her missing sister. After a Zeppelin carrying Benito Mussolini himself and a Nazi archaeologist named Voss arrives at the Vatican, Gina and Indy decide to team up to unravel the mystery surrounding the disappearance of the cat mummy and Gina's sister Laura. For some reason, both the Nazis and the Italian black shirts seem to be interested in the Vatican City, but what are they looking for here? Moving on, exploring an underground tomb with a bunch of cool traps and puzzles finally brings us to the Vatican's treasury of esoteric artifacts, a room quite literally full of treasures. Anyway, the cat mummy is here, but suddenly we're ambushed by the giant from Marshall College, now known as Locus. Once again, for some odd reason, he seems to be very interested in the cat mummy, even calling it a holy relic. With Locus in the room now, it's time for the first proper boss battle, which basically consists of nothing more than dodging Locus's attacks and swinging on him when you can, so unfortunately, it's a little underwhelming at best. Following this brief encounter, however, Padre Ventura brings Mussolini and Voss to enter the treasury, and well, it turns out he wants the cat mummy too, and this is where the story really starts to kick off. As Voss carelessly smashes the artifact that Indy was so keen on retrieving, a small stone tablet is revealed from within the mummy itself. Before we even begin to comprehend what this stone is, these Nazis start smashing shit everywhere, revealing another stone tablet hidden within another artifact. Voss finally says that these stone tablets happen to be relics of the Great Circle, and he's got this briefcase with a bunch of other tablets with a few of them still missing. After they leave the treasury, Indy and Gina hitch a ride onto the Zeppelin to follow Voss and his cronies. Aboard the Zeppelin, Indiana Jones explains what the Great Circle is. Over the course of history, humanity has constructed many sites of great significance, like Machu Picchu and Giza. Now, drawing a line through all of these spiritual sites around the globe makes a perfectly aligned circle. You guessed it, named the Great Circle. Now, it's pretty obvious that in the Indiana Jones stories and the real world, I guess to an extent, Hitler and the Nazis are always seeking to harness spiritual and supernatural power to conquer the world, and well, Indy sets off on an adventure to foil the Third Reich's plans once again. Following the little trip we took on the Zeppelin, our heroes find themselves feet first into a Nazi excavation site in Giza, right by the Great Pyramids. Giza, in a way much similar to the Vatican City, presents itself in the same way as a large open area with a main quest, many side quests and endeavors, and a lot of collectibles to find. Now, playing in Giza definitely brings back a lot of nostalgia from Raiders of the Lost Ark, as Indy rocks that classic desert dig site costume. A pretty interesting thing here that you'll notice instantly is the lack of censorship revolving around the very obvious Nazi imagery, and you know what, I want to talk about that a little bit. It doesn't take a genius to know that Nazis were bad, and just like the game itself, I'm not going to lecture you as to why they were bad. As much as people want to get offended and pressed at the sight of Nazis and their imagery, they were a real part of history, and are the main antagonist in Indiana Jones. I mean, Hitler himself makes an appearance here. What makes these movies and games great is as simple as Indy messing up their plans and punching them in the face. With all that being said, it's nice that the Nazi stuff isn't censored, as it really helps with immersion, more than you'd think. Walking around this dig site, it really does feel like you're walking around a real Nazi excavation happening in 1937, just like in the Cairo segment of Raiders of the Lost Ark. With that, some games, especially Black Ops 3 on the Zombies map Kino der Toten, censor out the Nazi imagery, and it just feels so fake to me, man. It's crazy to me that the original Zombies mode was literally called Nazi Zombies, and look at this, they're scared to even show a swastika. Like, if you're scared to portray history for what it was, then simply don't, and as you can see, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle does it the right way. They're bad guys, just let them be bad and move on. So just like before, you can engage in a lot of side content and side quests, all the while finding collectibles when eventually, the main quest takes us to one of the Great Pyramids themselves in search of the Idol of Ra. Now, just like the cat mummy that Indy found on a prior expedition, the Idol of Ra holds another fragment of the Great Circle. Spelunking through caves, solving neat puzzles, and crossing this really cool looking abyss will take us deeper and deeper into the depths of the darkness below the pyramid. We get an unexpected horror segment that really freaked me out when we have a gimmick boss, another one of these giants who just so happens to be blind. You gotta solve a puzzle all the while invading the sky, and let me tell ya, the anxiety is blasting through the roof during all of this. After we deal with this guy, Indiana Jones finally reaches the Idol of Ra within the inner chamber. So after picking up the idol and destroying it, the Giza fragment of the Great Circle is revealed, and in classic Indiana Jones fashion, removing the artifact is never that easy as sand starts to fill up the inner chambers. Indy escapes, and just when we think we're in the clear, we get stuck in some sand. So Voss shows up, and just like that jerk Belloc, he just takes the tablet from us, man, leaving us for dead to cook in the heat while some scorpion boys come to molest us. Gina and ally Nawal save us just in the nick of time, and it turns out Voss and the Nazis are on their way to the Himalayas. So, we're on their way to follow them as they've located yet another tablet. Now, just like in Marshall College, the Himalayas serve as a smaller segment in between the major set pieces. All there really is to do here is the main quest with some journal entries to be found along the way. Moving forward, we come to find a massive Nazi ship quite literally on top of a mountain, which is obviously impossible. Going inside, we find the whole crew frozen to death, eventually finding Gina's lost sister dead as well. Basically, Gina's sister Laura was recruited by the Nazis to help find the Great Circle fragments, and what ended up happening here is they found a tablet and accidentally transported themselves atop this mountain by using the stone's power, with the crew and Laura herself freezing to death. Shortly after, Indy and Gina find the tablet they were looking for when the Nazis finally catch up to them. A confrontation follows, and the ship begins to descend the mountain. In a desperate attempt to escape death, Gina and Indy use the stone to teleport elsewhere, unfortunately winding up in the destroyed city of Shanghai during Imperial Japan's invasion of China. Now Zeros and bombers are unleashing hell in the skies above, and well, we gotta get the hell out of this place before we get turned into ground beef. I once again want to mention the beautiful level design and art direction in this game specifically, as looking around this destroyed city is so graphically impressive. This segment of the game isn't even an hour long, yet so much care was taken for such a small portion of the game. Anyway, this Japanese pilot that crashes tries to bonsai charge Indy with a sword, but I pulled a Raiders moment here as the opportunity was perfect. I also think it's pretty amusing that Indiana Jones is technically the first American, if not person, to kill one soldier in each of the Axis powers. And remember, this is 2 whole years before the beginning of World War II. The objective here is to get on a crashed plane to escape the city, and after making our way to it, Gina is able to pilot it, and well, it's time for some aerial combat. She flies the plane while Indiana Jones takes the rear machine gun, and even though we put up as much of a fight as you possibly could against never-ending Imperial Japanese power, we eventually have to commit Grand Theft Plane just to get another working plane to stay in the air. Once again, Indiana is traveling to a new location, and in the dead of the night, we arrive in the rainy jungles of Sukhothai, nowadays known as Thailand. Sukhothai is the last major set piece of the game, and as a whole is the weakest in my opinion, mostly due to the majority of the map just being rivers as you travel while on a boat. Anyway, without getting too far ahead of myself, there's a rebellion in town currently fighting off the fascist Italians that are obviously here to help Voss get yet another relic of the Great Circle. Meeting with the village elder, he tells us of the blessed pearl that is hidden in a submerged temple, and well, like the Vatican and Giza, we set off in an open environment with a lot to do. Like I mentioned previously, a lot of Sukhothai is just riding around in a boat from location to location, and nothing interesting really happens on the boat itself. It would have been cool to have Italian patrols going up and down these rivers, but nothing like that ever happens once. Exploring the Sukhothai rivers also brings me one of my biggest negatives with this game, that being the technical state and performance while playing in this specific area. While on the boat, assets load in and out of existence, frame drops happen consistently, and the lighting is just all over the place. I mean, if the game was to be technically lacking in one area, this would be the place due to how much is on screen at any given time. So anyway, whether you engage with all the side content or go straight to the main quest, eventually you come upon this hidden pyramid in the jungle, partially submerged by murky swamp water. This whole segment was probably one of my favorites in the entire game, if not my favorite, as there's a giant frickin' snake in the water that insta-kills you if it catches you. And if you're a fan of Indiana Jones, you know he hates snakes. This thing is relentless, and you have to evade it all the while trying to find the secret entrance to the pyramid. After much trial and error, Indy makes it inside, and once again, just look at these visuals, man. While playing this game, I was constantly blown away at the world design, and this hidden pyramid is just so mysterious and interesting. Continuing on through the pyramid, the giant snake from outside stalks Indy, and we're eventually forced to fight him off in a pretty amusing boss fight. This massive serpent squares up against a literal college professor armed with tridents, and this shit is pure comedy gold. This man hates snakes so much, and being able to fight this thing off with these throwable tridents really got a good laugh out of me. Anyway, after taking out the great snake, Indy soon finds himself in a room with a game board. Solving this puzzle opens the door forward, revealing a map that leads to the Blessed Pearl. Time for yet another boss. Throwing hands with Locust eventually triggers the arrival of yet another giant snake, and Locust just holds back this absolute beast of an animal. There's just no way he's strong enough to just strangle it like that, but he does the Kong technique and kills it. Indy knocks out Locust, and with the map in our possession, it's time to go get the Blessed Pearl. Arriving at the temple that holds the Blessed Pearl, we have to solve a game similar to the one before in the Hidden Pyramid, this time with actual people. Completing it will open the path forward, and the Blessed Pearl is ours in no time, but as always, it's never that easy. Taking the artifact triggers another disaster, and the temple starts to flood, so it's time to get the hell out of there. Indy smashes the artifact, takes the stone tablet, and in an intense sequence, we gotta get going. So upon finally escaping, it turns out Locust was waiting for us all along. Indy surrenders the stones to him, and suddenly, we're all ambushed by Voss and his Nazis. Thankfully, the village rebels come to our aid and provide cover for Indy and the game to escape with the Machu Picchu and Sukhothai tablets. I spoke too soon though, as the whole Italian army seems to come at us as we ride down the river, killing boatload after boatload of enemies, desperately trying to kill us and get the stones. Unfortunately, after falling down a waterfall, Gina is captured, and my only gripe with this story, Locust and Indy team up to go save her. In this strange occurrence, Indiana Jones always has a girlfriend that he falls for, but right now, at this time in specific, Indy has two relics of the Great Circle in his possession. Gina getting taken prisoner is sort of a dumb motivation to move the plot forward, as Indy is incredibly selfish, and in actuality, he would have just abandoned her. He literally has no reason to go save her other than she's the love interest, and it's pretty stupid in my personal opinion, but it's an Indiana Jones story and we have to have the big finale. And so we arrive at the Ziggurat of Ur in Iraq, where the last relic of the Great Circle resides. A huge Nazi excavation is here, and after Indy and Locust come up with a plan, it's time to strike. Locust calls upon his giant buddies to distract the main Nazi force in order to allow us to secretly infiltrate and save Gina. Saving Gina isn't the last of it though, as curiosity clouds Indy's judgment because he wants to see what this was all for, and you know what? I can't blame him. The man has literally been across the globe searching for this secret, and so we push forward. Entering the ziggurat and descending to the bottom, we find ourselves with two paths. Taking a right brings us to this massive wall where we have to insert the ancient relics collected throughout the game to solve a puzzle and unlock a secret ending. Going left, however, shows the actual secret of the Ziggurat of Ur and what it's hiding, Noah's Ark itself. This thing blew me away and was such an unexpected moment, and the Nazis found it here in Iraq. Noah's Ark is such a fitting detail to be included within the story, as Indiana Jones's discoveries usually have some religious significance with supernatural powers from God himself. Infiltrating the Nazi encampment sees Indy and Voss have a civil conversation of what all of this means. God chose Noah to travel the world and collect 2 of each animal before the Great Flood, using the Ark as a vessel and the stones to teleport around the world. Like I mentioned previously, I absolutely love it when the Indiana Jones writers take real-world speculations and manifest them within a fictional setting. Anyway, in a really stupid way, Gina tries to be a hero and, well, we're all captured and brought onto the Ark to bear witness as Voss tries to use the power of God himself. In a really intense sequence, Voss loads the stones into Noah's Ark, yapping about how German panzer divisions could show up at Washington DC's doorstep in an instant. Gina, Indy, and Locus all watch helplessly as Voss tampers with forces not granted to him, as Indy warns him of his doom given that Noah was chosen by God, and Voss's fate was sealed the moment he tried to use the power he was not given. In the insane final moments of the story, God unleashes his wrath upon the Ark and brings forth a terrible storm, the second coming of the Great Flood. Voss and Indy duke it out, exchanging blows and even swinging kicks hanging off of Indy's whip. Voss is actually pretty challenging here, as he knows karate and is extremely mobile and punches hard and fast. Beating Voss, however, he is bested by his own ambition as he tries to retake control of the Ark from a literal guardian of the stone tablets. In a similar fashion to all Indiana Jones villains, he meets his doom and his desire steals his fate. With Voss and the Nazis finally defeated, Locust disappears with the Ark and the Great Flood dissipates. So, Indiana Jones and Gina made it out alive, and in a fitting ending, Gina flies back to Italy, telling Indy that a great war is on the horizon and she has a great story to tell. Indy gets rejected here to my surprise, with Gina kissing him goodbye and asking him to find her when the time is right. Indiana and Gina say their goodbyes, and as Gina's plane flies off into the sunset, Indiana puts his hat on and walks away as the Great Circle comes to an end and the Raiders March starts to play as the credits roll. What an amazing game, man. This is currently my favorite game of the year so far and was an absolute treat to play. If you're a fan of Indiana Jones and beating bad guys, exploring mysterious tombs and constant snake jokes, I 100% recommend Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And this game gets my ultimate seal of approval. Go check it out now if you haven't yet. So if you've played Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, what did you think of the game? If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel for more content. Also, if you wish to support the channel further, I'd encourage you to join the channel for $5 a month for exclusive perks. Thanks. This has been Behind the Grind, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!